Hello. Hi, Bennett. Hi, Emily. Good morning. Haley, Lizzie. Good morning. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Lizzie.
Hi.
Nathan and Haley, you can go ahead and open your videos. So Nathan, unmute your video feed. Nathan, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Do you know how to unmute your video? There should be a video icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can open, if you click on that, you'll open up your video feed.
Start video.
Yep, there you go. Good. Good morning. Hi, Joey. Alec, Julia. 8. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Waiting for 2 more of you. Okay, well, it's 10. I think we're missing one person, but I can't tell who. 12. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming back. Hope it's not awful cold where you are. Let's start with some items in the news. I sent you a note about a half an hour or so ago on some of the headlines that are getting a lot of attention. So let's start with Iran. Why is Iran back in the news? We haven't heard much from this country in a good number of months. What's going on there right now?
A lot of protests and a lot of people dying.
Who's that talking, Alec?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are they protesting, and what does the protest look like?
Well, there's I think the last thing I saw, there's 17 people dead, and protests are over. It's over with like the Pakistani deal that's like just been in the works. I know could be. I feel like I'm wrong on that part. I'm not really sure.
That's all right. That's probably among the issues. I think the death count at present is 30. People have been in the streets for about a week now, and they're protesting a wide range of things that have to do with government corruption, leadership, their own economic prospects, etc. So it's, I'm sorry, 20 dead. You said 16 or 17, Alec. It's somewhere in that range. So it bears watching. It's something that could explode at any point. We haven't really heard our government weigh in too specifically on what it might do to assist that situation, but it's a country of great interest to us. Who is Orrin Hatch, and why is he in the news?
He's a senator that just retired.
Senator from the state of
Utah.
Utah. Has he retired?
Or he said he would at the end of the year.
That's right. Well, he said he would at the end of his term, which I'm not exactly sure when his term ends. Anyway, that's a longtime Republican, been in the Senate a very long time, like 4 decades. So that's big news, and the Republicans will be watching that, as well as the administration, so as to retain their control of Congress. Who is, let's see, next name, Al Franken. Al Franken has been in the news. Why, and why is he back in the news right now? Nathan, you want to jump in on that one?
He's retiring from the.
You're going to pump up your sound. I'm not hearing you. Your sound level.
Can you hear me now?
Nope.
No.
Nope. I'm hearing you very faintly. That's all right. Somebody else jump in on the Al Franken question. Who is he? Why is he back in the news right now?
Didn't he just resign from the Senate?
Correct. Right. So he had earlier announced plans to resign. For what reason, Julia?
He was accused of sexual assault.
Sexual harassment. Assault is a stronger word, right? That's all right. But we have to be precise when we talk about these things so that we get it right. So assault is actually a legal charge and usually implies rape. So sexual harassment is a little softer way and broader way. So yes, he actually left Congress yesterday to be replaced by the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota. How about, I put the name Marvin. Who is Marvin? Why is he in the news?
Marvin Lewis.
Cincinnatians. What's up with Marvin Lewis?
He signed a 2-year contract.
Right, so he's not going to go after all. After much media speculation in the greater Cincinnati market that he would be leaving. He is not leaving. So, okay.
Mediocrity here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Doherty was like, bye, Marvin, like a week ago, 10 days ago.
He's the second longest tenured head coach in the NFL. The only head coach that served longer is Bill Belichick, and he's probably won 3 Super Bowls in his reign, and Marvin is 0-7 in all playoff games. So that just puts it in perspective how little the Bengals cares about the Bengals. That's my rant.
Yeah, there was somebody quoted on one of our network affiliates last night saying, well, the Browns are kind of old. They don't have a whole lot of energy to break in a new coach. And I thought, well, that's a piss poor explanation for why they're keeping Marvin. It's like, well, it's too much trouble. We'll just keep him. So there's that going on. I put Amazon in my list of talking points for the morning. Amazon's always an interesting story. I'm sure like me, you probably used Amazon in recent weeks for purchasing items. Anybody know why it's getting some buzz today?
They're going to be buying Target in 2018 sometime.
Gonna be, or how solid is that news, would you say, Bennett?
It sounds like they just really want to compared to they will, just from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I've only seen one report, and it was a venture capitalist kind of floating the idea that Amazon might purchase Target so that it can get a stronger physical presence. So we'll see how that plays out. Among our guests, sorry, Nathan, do you have earbuds, Nathan? Because sometimes that'll solve the sound problem.
Maybe, yeah, I can.
Try those. And on your laptop, bump up your sound level to the highest level. So among our guests later in the week is the retail reporter at CNBC. And I would guess that a story about Amazon and Target would be something she is chasing, right? Something she's highly interested in right now. So we'll see on that. The name Huma, I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Huma? Who am I talking about? You guys know?
She's one of Hillary Clinton's advisors.
Last name?
Abdulin or
Abedin, I think.
Abedin.
Right? She was a close advisor for many years to Hillary Clinton, and her former husband is the congressman, I'm forgetting his name too, Anthony Weiner. Anthony Weiner, caught up in his own sex scandals, right? I believe they're either divorced or separated now. And why is she in the news, Sophie?
She sent like classified information through emails or something to foreign officials or something like that.
Yeah, so this is part of the continuing focus on Hillary Clinton's email activity. And Trump apparently tweeted something about her needing to be in jail or be prosecuted, putting her name back in the headlines. And then last one, Hoda. Who's Hoda? She's
over from Matt Lauer.
Everybody's moving their mouth at the same time. But I think, her name is out there. She is taking over the Today chair from Matt Lauer. And how do you say her last name? Anybody know?
Copy.
With the B? Okay. So we'll see how that goes. It's not been that often that we have all female lead anchors on various shows, so that's getting some play. And I didn't put that on the list, but the Me Too movement, hashtag Me Too, now has, I guess, a successor. There's another campaign being led by Hollywood types. Anybody know the name of that? My daughter told me it last night. I'm trying to remember. It's like Not Now or What's Next, or somebody Google that while we're talking here. Me Too is going to be taken over by,
I think it's called Time's Up.
Time's Up. Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
No, I think you're right, Amanda. I think it's Time's Up Now something, either org or com, and it seeks to be addressing problems highlighted by the whole Me Too movement, right? So what do we do now? How can we help address the issues of sexual harassment in the workplace? All right. So weather report, seeing still the same as yesterday in terms of predictions, but then also seeing some very alarming news stories breaking this morning about the possibility of New York really getting socked by heavy snow about the time most of us are arriving on Saturday and Sunday. So we'll just continue to watch it. We can't predict any of that. We can't control any of that. If your flight is canceled or changed, please let me know, right? So that we can make, just make arrangements, be nimble on that. And if you don't arrive in time for Sunday, hopefully you'll be there in time for Monday. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed and keep watching on that. But again, pack accordingly, plan accordingly, leave yourself plenty of time. Be sure that you're checking your flight online to make sure that it hasn't been canceled or changed. Most of the time you get alerts from your airline if you signed up for that, but be watching all that. And since I'm talking about airlines, I had this conversation with Alec yesterday because we're both on the same flight coming out of Cincinnati on Saturday afternoon. Depending on where you're flying from and who you're flying with, make sure that you've booked your seat in advance and your bag in advance if you're going to, in fact, check a bag, because it's usually cheaper and more efficient to do it in advance than to do it when you get to the airport. Leave yourself plenty of travel time to get to the airport. I speak from experience. I have had the unfortunate experience of missing flights because I cut it too close, right? So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you get on the plane you're supposed to get on. Okay. I know many of you are experienced flyers, but if you're not, those are all things to keep in mind as you prepare to leave. All right. Websites, I got most of the links in, I think, by the 9:30 deadline. I saw them come in as I signed on about an hour ago. So I'll be taking a look. I'll flip through those, and if I see anything that's really problematic, I'll let you know. If you didn't get yours in yet and are having problems, write to me individually, and we can do a call like this together to walk you through some of the steps, or whatever your situation might be if you need assistance on the site. Okay, portfolios, those are due tomorrow 5 p.m. That's Thursday. Each of you have 3 to write. So I would anticipate that your day today and tomorrow after we're offline is reading and writing, right, to put together those documents. There's a reason you get 3 credits in this class, is because you have to do the work. So spend the time, do the work, no matter what else you've got going on as you prepare to head to New York. I did create the portfolio assignment online. If I have set the parameters right, you should be able to look at everybody else's, right, to be able to read them by midnight Sunday and write up 2 questions for each guest. Okay, so those are coming in tomorrow at 5. That gives you, am I right on that, tomorrow 5? Correct? Yes? Okay. I'm checking my own. Yeah. They're due to Canvas by 5. And even though you have 3 of them, I just want them in one place on Canvas. So you're gonna load 3 Microsoft Word documents as attachments onto your into that assignment. Okay. And as I said, I set those as a group assignment, which I think is the right setting, so everybody can get in there and look at that. But as soon as those, I have a plan B. If that doesn't work, I have another way to make those available to everybody. So those of you who have done group assignments in other classes, is that the right setting? Because I've never used that on Canvas. If the instructor sets it as a group assignment, should everybody else be able to open the documents in a particular assignment and look at them? Yay or nay? Anybody know for sure? Joey says is kind of nodding. Okay. So again, if it doesn't work, I'll come up with a different plan to download those and put them maybe in a Google folder or something like that. All right. Any questions on the portfolios right now? Nope. Okay. And again, remember, you can always put things in the chat field if you need to. All right, let's go on to some readings for today. I asked you to, it's quite a long list, and I'll tell you what, I'm not 100% there with you guys. I assigned them all, I read them, when I picked them, but as to going back and kind of synthesizing them, I'm not, we'll get as far as we can get, okay? But I know that it's a lot to read. So we left off yesterday with the Columbia Journalism Review. Let's jump into Jim Rutenberg, who wrote first about The Post. Somebody tell me, what is The Post?
It's a movie about the Washington Post, about the leaked Pentagon Papers.
Going back to the 1970s. Pentagon Papers. What was the nature of the Pentagon Papers? What did they actually? What kind of information did they include?
It held the status of what the war was like in Vietnam, and they were pretty. The war wasn't going so well, but the American public didn't know, so the Post thought it was right that they should go ahead and publish these because the American people should know what they're getting themselves into. Right.
Our administration was not giving us much of a straight story. Who leaked those papers?
Daniel
Ellsberg, right. He was a contractor with the Department of Defense, and he, I think the movie will show us in dramatic detail how he actually made, physical copies and carried these boxes to both the New York Times and the New York Post. The Washington Post. So Rutenberg is writing about the movie, but he's using it really as a vehicle to explore a good number of other media issues, right? So first, the nature of leaking. and how Ellsberg, as the leaker, provided these documents. There was a legal fight to get them into the media on the part of the Nixon administration, and he makes comparisons between now and then. Obviously, right? He's talking about the Trump administration trying to control leaking. But as I said yesterday, the Trump administration is not that different than most administrations. Presidents don't like leakers. They want to control the message. They want to be setting the agenda. So all administrations try to clamp down on leaks that lead to unfavorable news coverage. What does Rutenberger's column tell you about the impression of the movie inside the New York Times? Like, what do his colleagues think of the movie from kind of some veiled references?
They think it should be called The Times.
Yeah. They didn't get like enough credit.
Right.
Like it should be called, like what he said. Be more of the focus on the Times versus the Post.
Yeah. So for whatever reason, the movie writers have shaped the story around Katharine Graham at the Washington Post instead of the Sulzberger family at the New York Times. And, that's an interesting insider perspective that he adds there, because they were both all over that story. And maybe the Post, I don't know why the Post got the big attention on this. The only other thing that I think is worth focusing on is that Rutenberger also uses this as a reason to talk about family ownership of media, right? I think we tend to think that corporations control all of the important news media in our country, when in fact the Sulzberger family at the New York Times and the Graham family at the Washington Post have been hugely influential in setting high standards and aggressive reporting demands. And without their leadership, our news media would look very different, right? If those had been corporate interests and they were answering to different kinds of demands rather than journalistic demands. So, we are fortunate in this country that we had two families with extraordinary dedication to openness and First Amendment that have set the way. Interesting. And then he does tell you, and maybe you've heard this, that there is new leadership at the very top of the New York Times. Who is that person?
Arthur Gregg Sulzberger is the new publisher, and he's taking over from his father, which is now it's the fifth generation. Right.
So Amanda, that's pretty new news, right? Although I think it was well known. It's not like a surprise. And he moved up to some like associate publisher position a few months ago in preparation for this. So, inside the New York Times newsroom, the succession was not a surprise, but it does keep the paper in family control for another generation, because this guy's like in his late 30s, something like that. So that's all good stuff from Rutenberg. The kind of column you just read from Rutenberg on the Post is a prime example of how he approaches his reporting. So he'll, have a main topic, in this case, the movie, The Post, but then use it for a whole bunch of other things. Right. So he's very well-informed, deeply sourced, and because he's a columnist, he has the latitude to offer a little bit of point of view in his reporting, but he very much does reported columns, right? Relies a lot on the reporting of it, and then maybe, shapes it to offer a point of view. It's worth noting that the New York Times has long had a focus on the media, given that the city of New York is the epicenter of the most important media in our country. Although people in LA may dispute that, it is true, right? And the New York Times being at the top of the heap, they have had a long and serious interest in covering the world of the news media, as well as the entertainment media, but Rutenberg is focused on news media. Before Rutenberg was this guy named David Carr, who we had the great pleasure of meeting 3 times in our first 3 trips to New York. And he was an absolute rock star in the world of journalism, and he unfortunately died of a heart attack at age 57 in the newsroom about 10 days after we saw him. So that was kind of a shocking moment for the world and for the students who got to meet him. And then Rutenberg was hired shortly after that. I think he came in from another beat, and he's doing a good job. He has a different voice than David Carr, who tended to be more acerbic and had a sharper stick, right? But Rutenberg is really gaining prominence, and I was very pleased he was able to see us last year. I asked him, and he was traveling at that time. So the second piece that you looked at was just a short podcast, not even a podcast, a short video that was on the New York Times. It paired with a longer piece that Rutenberg wrote. And what was the focus? Somebody who hasn't jumped in yet this morning. What was the focus of the video? With Rutenberg was the narrator of the piece.
To talk about the fall of male media stars after Harvey Weinstein.
Right. And Lizzie, who were the people that he highlighted in that video?
Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, and Bill O'Reilly.
Right. So those are three names you should definitely be aware of as we head to New York, right? I think it would be pretty hard to escape notice of those. Matt Lauer was at what show, Lizzie?
The Today Show.
Today Show, and accused of sexual impropriety. Bill O'Reilly at what show, Lizzie?
Is he Top Gun?
The O'Reilly Factor, the No Spin Zone.
For what network, Nathan?
He was on Fox.
Right. And now he's not.
No.
Does he live on somewhere else? Does he have a voice on a different channel?
He's probably came out with a new book for killing my career. I don't know.
How I Make Millions of Dollars While I Harass Every Woman in Eyesight. So we have Bill O'Reilly, we've got Matt Lauer, and then who was the other one, Lizzie?
Charlie Rose.
Charlie Rose, likewise, accused of some pretty gross improprieties with women, all of which were detailed in the New York Times and many other places. The New York Times, you should know, though, has been at the forefront. They're the ones that broke the Harvey Weinstein story and have been pushing forward with many more stories about other leading men in media, politics, and entertainment, right? So just good to know all that's happening, right? And if you want to read about any of those people, a quick Google will get you all the background about all of their misdeeds in glorious detail. Let's move on to Dan Barry. Who's our Dan Barry portfolio person?
That's me.
Emily? So why don't you tell the lead? Did you take the lead on this? What do you want to tell people today about the Lost Children of Tuam project?
This was about a home in Tuam, Ireland, which is near Galway, and it was for mothers who had children out of wedlock. It was run by the Roman Catholic Church. This woman, Catherine Corliss, kind of was a village girl who lived there, but when she got older, she was trying to uncover the story behind it because there was a lot of secrets. And in the 1970s, they found bones in like this septic tank kind of thing. So she was trying to figure out who they were. And she found out there were like almost 800 kids that died in this home. But it's a bunch of different, like follows a lot of different people who were children in the home and are now obviously in their 70s, but they closed it in the 1960s. But it's just kind of uncovering the secrets behind this home in Tuam, Ireland.
Right. So please take time to read the project in full, because our entire conversation with Dan Barry is about this project. We're not talking to him about, the arc of his career, his other very notable work that he's done for many years for the New York Times. It's just about this. So come with questions. Take time to read this story. It's really a very interesting story. And it's good to know that Dan Barry, or you should know, Dan Barry did not discover this story. It's been out there. It's been talked about by other people and reported on. But he put together a very interesting approach to it. Clearly spent time with Catherine, the woman that Emily just mentioned. Clearly went to Ireland, and got the sounds and sights and so forth. Is there a video component online as well?
Yeah, there is. There's like a 12-minute video on YouTube that kind of covers the major points of the whole story.
Okay.
Breaks it down a little bit.
I actually did not see that part, or I didn't open that part. I read it in print, still have it here in my pile. So some of our conversations with guests are going to be wide-ranging and, career spanning. This is a different kind of session where I just want to have this guy talk about this one intense project. So you need to read it and have lots of detailed questions, or our conversation is going to be really flat, right? And the last thing I want is for us to go to the New York Times and not have good conversations, right? I'll never get in the door again. So you guys have to, bring your A game, especially with Rutenberg and Dan Barry, okay? I hope on that day we have time to go to their gift store so you can buy some stuff. Always fun to buy stuff when you go to New York. Okay, let's move on to our next reading. We have two pieces each from our guests at Bloomberg. The first one is an exhaustive piece about a piece of real estate on Fifth Avenue that the Kushner family owns. Who's our lead on Caleb Melby? Nobody wants to talk about that one, right? Oh, not me. Caleb. Hold on here. This is one of our Bloomberg guests. Maybe you haven't gotten that far to look at your assignment. Bloomberg, Andy Martin. That is assigned to Nathan. So Nathan, you have the distinct privilege of reading this really long piece and making sure that you're up on what Caleb reported on this.
I just forgot my third one for a second. I know I have Trevor Noah and Adam Edelman from NBC. I just blanked. So I've only had one cup of coffee this morning. So brewing my second currently.
Fresh from Michigan. You're still yeah. Well, make sure you read that piece because it's a very long, detailed piece about a troubled piece of real estate that the Kushner family owns and how it's been.
Is it the 666 Madison Avenue?
666 Fifth Avenue.
Oh yeah, not Madison Avenue. Fifth
Avenue.
Yeah.
That it's a building that needs a major overhaul, or maybe needs to be torn down. And
he bought it for like $1.2 billion more than it was like worth, or something like that. Yeah.
But the author uses that piece of real estate, that real estate deal, as an entree to talk about the financial position of the Kushner family. There are many holdings. There's a really interesting map that's about halfway through the story that shows you all the holdings the Kushner family has in Manhattan and nearby in New Jersey. It's pretty eye-opening, and just think about all the conflicts of interest that come when you're trying to get foreign investors and other U.S. investors to be interested in your real estate deals when you are also the advisor to the president, right? It's a little complicated. So it's an interesting piece. And again, Bloomberg, these are high-level folks. This is what this guy covers, right? I mean, that's Bloomberg. Just to kind of dial back here, Bloomberg is a news organization that was created by Michael Bloomberg, who was the mayor of New York. He made his money by creating hardware for for Wall Street, meaning computer terminals and software for Wall Street professionals. And he used that money to then run for mayor. And then he also launched a media empire. And so the reporters who work for Bloomberg are very specialized, right? So the reporter we're going to see, this Caleb Melby, he covers Jared Kushner. That's his primary responsibility. There aren't a lot of news organizations that have that luxury, have that level of specialization. And it can't be easy to cover Jared Kushner because he's the advisor to the president and he's not going to really give a lot of access. So pay special attention to how he reported that story. Where did he get information? What were the public documents, right? What were the interviews? Who did he interview? Who didn't he interview? Who wouldn't talk to him, right? So again, it's kind of difficult material if you've never read any real estate news, but I think it's pretty accessible if you take your time to read that piece, okay? The other piece, frankly, I didn't return to, so I'm not prepared to talk about his piece about dealing with one of Israel's wealthiest families. But it is, it is important to know that, of course, that Kushner is Jewish, and that the administration, recently made a move that somewhat changes our relationship with Israel. What was that move last year?
Moving the U.S. recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Right, which not everybody is on board with, and it was kind of seemed to me out of left field, but it's not an issue that I pay attention to all that regularly. So that story is one I will definitely read before we're in a room with Caleb, and I would ask you to do that as well. Kate Smith has 2 stories. She covers college endowments. So first of all, somebody explain, what's a college endowment? What does that mean? You guys have a vague understanding?
You can go.
it's like, for example, like Harvard has like the biggest endowment. They've got like $34 billion. I think it's just the amount of money like the university has to spend on certain things. That might have sounded obvious, but yeah, I know Miami has an endowment of about $545 million, somewhere in there.
Okay. I don't know that that's the amount, Nathan, but endowed funds, every university has endowed funds. They're funds that come in and you pretty much don't spend the principal amount, meaning, if $100 million comes in from the Newberry family, which will never happen, that would just be protected, and it would throw off interest income, right? So the university would take that $100 million, invest it in the market. The market's doing very well right now, which helps all of us who have money in the market. But the endowed funds would be protected, and universities want to build up those endowed funds, right, so that they can throw off a lot of investment income. So that's what she covers, is university endowment funds. And her 2 stories here, one has to do with salaries of presidents, which really isn't an endowment issue, and then the other one has to do with what happens when a university goes under, right, collapses, and what do they do with the endowed funds, right? What happens to those? So on the salary question, who's assigned to Kate Smith? Kate Smith is Emily. That's one of yours, Emily. Okay. This is all, these assignments are in 2 places, guys. If you're not up on who your portfolio assignments are, right?
I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I understand. This is a lot of work in a short time. It's on the full itinerary under the final column, which says portfolio assignments. And then secondly, it's on the roster. I have a column called portfolio assignments. So probably the roster is the easier place to check, because I have your name with your 3 assignments versus the itinerary where your name is sprinkled throughout the calendar. Okay. So anyway, Kate Smith writing about, did anybody read the piece on university salaries, presidential salaries? So Alec, tell us a little bit about what that piece is looking at.
First looked at the president of Wake Forest, Nathan Hatch, who is one of the 58 college presidents with a total compensation of more than $1 million. Mm-hmm. And that's up. It was 39 in 2014. And so that has kind of to do with like the Republican drafted tax legislation, which will make colleges not to be tax exempt. So like that was kind of the issue. And it's just like all like they talked about like a lot of base pay and how it was really just how all this money are going to these presidents, and it's just an egregious amount of money that's kind of unfair. I wouldn't say unfair, but like why do they need all this money when it can go to some other better cause?
Or to other expenses at a university.
Yeah, or to the many other.
Right, it could defray your tuition costs. It
Yeah,
could,
here's the
scholarships to go to NYCMedia every year.
Yeah, here's the chart for like their base pay, and then they have bonus pay, and then they have non-taxable, and then they have other, which is like health insurance and even other expenses that like just a normal employee would get.
And where did she get her information from?
The Chronicle of Higher Education.
Right. So her story, by comparison, is not nearly as complicated and richly reported as her colleague, which
Correct.
is not to diminish the work, but it's pretty much a story that says there's an annual ranking from the Chronicle of Higher Education. They do all the work, they collect all the data, they crunch all the numbers, and here, we're going to report on it, right? And she, in fact, she quotes one of the writers of that piece. It's still newsworthy, it's just not, a deep investigative piece like the real estate piece. So anybody know by comparison how much Pres Greg makes?
500, what did we say in 101? 550 or 575?
508.
508. Oh.
Good memory though.
I knew it was in the fives.
Right. So he broke into the $500,000 range. He was hired at like $495 a year ago, and then he got a raise, and then
his bonus.
Then he gets his big bonus, right, on top of his. And how much is the bonus, Bennett? Remember?
Was it 75?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because he's doing a good job. So 70. Here you go, 75. So yeah, university presidents make a lot of money, and that's the story on that one. Her other story on endowments is a little more nuanced, and looking at what happens when universities go out of business, what happens to the endowed funds, who has to administer disbursement of those funds, and so on and so forth. So again, Bloomberg has the luxury of having very narrow beats, letting somebody just write about university finances. I find it fascinating because I look at this stuff with like capstone students. We look at university finances and try to dig down into public documents that Miami has to do reporting. So it's good to know as journalism students that all that data is out there, and that knowing it's there gives you the ability then to go after that journalistically and decide what you're going to do with some of that data. All right, the Patch articles are both kind of old. I could not find anything really new. So basically, whoever I assign Patch, and that is Patch.
I think it's me.
Who's that? Julia. Right. So, maybe you'll come across some more recent information, coverage of Patch itself, or coverage or stuff that they've posted on their own website that might be make for interesting reading. But anyway, those two articles, Julia, you want to just give us a briefing? What do those two articles tell us?
Basically, it just tells us that Patch has actually been growing despite how hyper-local news is kind of not flourishing right now. And it just focuses on really specific content in like different places across the country. And it focuses a lot on it's a local school warnings and finding pets. Not the most interesting stuff, but it's doing well. And it's almost become more of a social and mobile alert platform. And then they're expanding in this thing called Operation Sprout, where they're going to set up pages across the country that are paired with other local news outlets.
Right. So hyper-local news is a term that's been around for about a decade or more. This idea that one way to serve an audience is to go really, really local, right? We call this kind of chicken dinner news. What's going on at the local church and what's going on with your school board and your city council. And so Patch is organized with several, is usually in, they'll have a hub, kind of a hub and spoke system. So Cleveland, for example, has a Patch reporter station there, and he's like the editor for all of Cleveland. And then it'll say, you know, patch Cleveland Heights and patch, you know, other Cleveland neighborhoods. But it's pretty much one guy feeding all those different things and kind of mixing up the selection of news items. And then they'll have correspondents that submit news. Sometimes those are just local folks. So it's you know, it's an idea that is still struggling. I'm not sure that it's the answer to what ails the news business. And again, I think I mentioned this, one of the reasons we're going is because Miami has a relationship with Patch. I've used the Patch platform for classes the last 2 falls, and they love it because we're giving them real content edited by professors. And it's free. Right? I don't get any money from Patch. The students who write for it don't get any money from Patch. And yet we're out there doing, you know, real journalism on a, you know, Oxford level, but, you know, we cover city council and the school board and city administration and so on and so forth. So crime, courts, stuff of that nature. So that as part of your preparation, Julia, I would encourage you to take a trip through the Oxford Miami Patch site and see the topics that we have been covering, so you have a sense of that. Okay, so that's a thing, Patch. We're going to skip those 2 to do. Next reading gets us to Morning Joe. And Morning Joe, I have both Sophia and Joey covering the Morning Joe show. So either one of you want to tell us what those articles are about?
Yeah, so the first one was a video of like a clip, and Mika was basically like talking about a tweet that Trump wrote about one of, it was a female senator, I believe. Was it a senator?
Christian Gillibrand?
Yes, and she was basically saying, she kept saying like, today is your day, addressing people, other like advisors and people working in the White House to stand up to Trump or, you know, say like, I will not work for a president who says these things or treats women this way. So she was really like empowering people to stand up to what he was saying and not just kind of take what he says. And it was really like empowering women. Like there was a lot of like there was a live audience there, a lot of women, they were all like clapping and so it was definitely just fueling the fight between the two of them, the show and Trump.
Right. So give us a little backstory, either you or Joey. Why has Morning Joe as a show been feuding with the Trump administration? What's the nature of that beef?
He had said something about Mika. I can't remember it right now. What did he say?
He said something rude about her having having a facelift or some kind of procedure. And she was bleeding from her face.
Bleeding from a facelift. Horrible fake news.
So, but previously there'd been kind of this, I don't know, relationships, maybe overstating it, kind of this dalliance between Joe Scarborough, who used to be in Congress, and Trump. They were kind of frenemies, right? So they, you know, Scarborough would sometimes go to some Trump things, and it's like, are you going as a friend? Are you going as a morning show host? Why are you at this thing? Do you support Trump, etc.? So their show is kind of interesting. You know, it's they're kind of all over the place politically, mostly, I guess, left of center lately, but Scarborough is a Republican. Joey, what do you want to say about this, since you read the pieces yet, or?
Yeah, I read the first piece. The second link was to a video, which I actually didn't get a chance to watch because I didn't know. I don't know. I just was trying to focus on finding Andy Martin's stuff, which some of the things you linked weren't there. But I know the second video talks about it's like the two hosts of Morning Joe kind of firing back at Trump after he said, I forget, was it a senator would like do anything for campaign funds or something, and it was
Yeah, that's the Christian Gillibrand reference.
Christian Gillibrand, exactly.
Trump said something vaguely sexual about Christian Gillibrand would do anything for contributions, which, came off as pretty tone deaf, right? Why would he say that in the midst of all this Me Too stuff? But nonetheless, right. So anyway, the show has this interesting relationship with Trump. And if you haven't watched it, I know you've got a lot to do, but I've been trying to tune into the various shows that we're going to be visiting. This is the time of year that I've got like the morning shows on. I hardly ever watch morning television, but I am right now because I want to see Bill Hemmer and I want to see Morning Joe. And I stayed up and watched Colbert last night, who had on Anderson Cooper. It was a nice interview, just to be like imbued in all the things that we're going to be. Right. And this is the life all of our guests lead, by the way. They all pay attention to each other and they know what other people are doing. If they're not spending a half an hour watching Colbert, they're certainly following his Twitter feed to know who the guests were and did they say anything that was explosive. And, everybody in New York is very, very absorbed by their job, right? It's all consuming. So the two guests we have there are kind of booking people. They set up the guests and handle all the logistics to get guests on the air, which sounds like, hey, that'd be fun. Yeah, fun, but hard, and also have to be super, again, invested in the news. They have to know why they're having on, if it's Christian Gillibrand or anybody else. And there's a huge amount of competition between these shows to bring on guests, right? To book the leading voice of the day. That's really their bread and butter, is what kind of get, right? It's called a get. That was a great get, if you get a guest that everybody else is chasing. So, got the morning shows, got the late night comedy shows, got your straight on news programs, network, cable, etc., all going after kind of the same set of newsmakers in any given news cycle. It's very competitive, and you have to give them reasons to pick your show over other ones. And then, of course, you have to treat them very well when they get there so that they think it was time well spent. Let's move on to Bill Hemmer. So Bill Hemmer, that's Alec. Have you had time to look at the Bill Hemmer clips?
Actually, I have not. I started his portfolio, and I did not think we would get to him today, but I just started reading him today.
That's fine. So tell us about Bill Hemmer, though. What do you know about him so far?
So Bill Hemmer, he is from Cincinnati, which is very important. He actually went to my rival high school, but fun facts. He graduated Miami with a bachelor degree in broadcast journalism. He first started interning at the NBC's affiliate, but after a while doing a bunch of stuff, he was at CNN for 10 years, reporting. He was in Florida. He was at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta when there was that bombing. He was at the recount in 2000 in Florida, and he reported from the World Trade Center. In 2005, he transitioned over to Fox News, where he covered the Katrina, Iraq War, interviewed Barack Obama, and now he is running the 9/11 America newsroom with Sandra Smith, who they just bumped her. They put her on. It looks like they just put her on in the fall.
Right. So that was a fall hire. So that's the newest thing happening in Bill Hemmer's hemisphere.
That's what.
Yeah. He's a local boy made good. And he's been now at Fox for whatever, like a decade, would you say, Alex?
Yeah, 13 years now.
Right. So he's in his early 50s.
He's also 50, but he doesn't look like he's 50.
No, he's got a nice face for TV.
Yeah.
He has no family though.
What's that?
He doesn't have any family. He's not married.
He's not married. There's always been speculation about his place in the world, right?
My mom used to work with him, actually.
Uh-huh.
I told her that we were going, and she's like, oh my gosh, I know him.
Yeah.
And they worked in Green Bay. And yeah, she had interesting things to say. I don't know if I should say them, but
let's not say them while we're recording the session. We can do that offline.
But he's a good guy. He seems very sweet.
He is, and he's very, very imbued in the news. Very, when we're there, we'll have a chance to see him in action if it plays out as it has previous years, where he's on the set and he's like, he's got all these resources coming at him the whole time. So then, the interesting part of his world right now is the turmoil at Fox in recent months. Right. O'Reilly's out. Megyn Kelly left to go to NBC. Other big names have left. And so it's caused this whole ripple effect of their lineup of different people coming and going and trying to find the optimal lineup. But Bill has been pretty much on that America's Newsroom. America's Newsroom.
Yeah.
For all of his time there, if I'm remembering, Alec, is that right? I don't think he's had any other time slots, but he's had a bunch of different co-hosts.
He's definitely had. I don't know the list of his co-hosts, but he's doing a lot of coverage before doing the American Newsroom.
Yeah, right. So he was part of the Fox News team before he got his own show. But the show is very newsy. It's not a talk show. It's not that morning Fox show that Donald Trump likes so much.
Yeah.
Not chit chat, and it's not imbued with heavy political commentary. Okay, I would argue that you still get a conservative bent in that time slot. The guests that Bill and his team book, for example, are primarily Republicans who are pro-Republican policy and pro-Trump administration. And the nature of his questions seem to me to be, more skeptical of anything that's a Democratic idea from the Democratic side, right? So be listening for that. And it's fair to ask those kinds of questions. He gets them all the time. So he has yet another new host, the Sandra Smith person. Yeah. Nathan, were you piping in?
I was going to say, I think it's the most watchable thing on Fox, America's Newsroom. Mm-hmm. That's saying a lot. That's the most watchable thing on Fox. Yeah.
And I think Bill has a good reputation as being a pretty straight shooter and so forth. But to be a Fox anchor at this moment in time is just kind of a interesting proposition, So any questions are fair. Bill will take them all. Our visits there, just so you know, Alec and the rest of you, we go in the studio, we watch him do his thing. Then it's usually like he's highly distracted, like he's got to go do it, and then he's like, hey gang, and then he talks to us for a few minutes, and then he does something else, and then often it's like a scramble to find a place to go chat with us. So I'll follow up before we go this week. I always like on Thursday or Friday write like an email to each guest and say, well, look forward to seeing you, hope that it plays out this way. And so to his assistant, hope that we can have a conversation with Bill off the set, because otherwise it's just too frenetic and not very qualitative. Alec.
So I have a question, and you can give your professional insight. So since he's from Cincinnati, I had the idea of possibly giving him some Skyline chili, just like in a box. That'd be great.
Lovely.
Right, perfect.
If anybody wants to do that for any of your guests, that's fine. The gift that I have prepared, as I said yesterday, is a branded water bottle. It'll be in a little gift bag with a note that you write. But if you want to add anything to it, go for it. That's nice. All right. And he still follows Cincinnati high school sports. Because he was a sports reporter for
he was for
WCPO
and WLWT.
Right. All right. Let's move on to Fox Business, and I think that's all we'll do for today, because that's as far as I got on being ready to talk about the rest of these stories. now I could probably fake it, but we'll just let you go after this because it's almost an hour and that's long enough. So who is our Jerry Willis?
I am.
Joey,
yes.
You're on. Okay, so what do you know about Jerry Willis so far?
Well, I know that she is the former host of the Willis Report, which is a program that's a part of the Fox Business Network. And actually, so initially when I just Googled her name, I was expecting the article to be about like some business, some in-depth like thing. But it was kind of refreshing to read the article that's it's about her struggle with breast cancer over the last 18 months. And it's pretty personal and really emotional. And she talks about how it really made her understand that life isn't guaranteed. And now she's taking everything day by day. And it helped her form closer personal connections with her husband and her brother, which was cool to see. And just that actually fighting this devastating disease actually made her a better person. So it was a really refreshing article to read, especially from like Fox, which was something I wasn't actually expecting.
Yeah.
And then lately, I guess the news with her is that she has this might be like 6 months to like 8 months old, but like she took off her wig that she was wearing after her cancer treatment and is now just with short hair, obviously that she lost her longer hair due to chemo. But so yeah, pretty like emotional piece, but really enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. So that's really the biggest thing going with her. Last year when we were there, we booked her and then she canceled same day because she didn't come to the office because she wasn't feeling well given treatment. So I think that she's back full time and so forth. What she covers, just so you know, is she covers business, but kind of from the consumer point of view. So it's like what's called personal finance. So this would be the time of the year that she's probably talking about getting ready to do your taxes and what you can do to reduce your taxes and maybe how the tax bill is going to affect you going forward. And, you know, I won't call it lightweight, but it is definitely more of a consumer focus on business versus, right, our Bloomberg guest who's doing real estate deals or college endowments and so forth, or our other retail reporter over at CNBC who's looking at big national retailers and what they're up to. Jerry's going to be more about what are called pocketbook issues, right? You know, maybe there's a new investment that people should consider, whatever, right? But really what she seems to be making most news about is her own personal health travails and all of that. So we'll see how that visit goes. All right, so this is what I want you to do for the balance of your day. I want you to
have a quick question about Jerry. Do you want like our questions to be about like her journey and what she's going through, or?
I think that's appropriate, right? But I don't want our entire conversation with her to be about her breast cancer struggle, right? But I do think that we can take that and use that as a reason to talk about women in the workforce, women at Fox, right? I think it's okay to say, hey, Jerry, what's your take on what happened with Bill O'Reilly? Right? So questions that are sensitive like that, that's how you have to word them. You don't go, so did Bill O'Reilly ever try anything on you, Jerry? Right? That's not the question. It's more like, so, you know, Bill O'Reilly's been in the news a lot after his departure or because of his departure from Fox. So what's your take on that, Jerry? Like really open-ended questions, and she can take them where she wants to go with them, right? But here she's a high-level woman. She anchored her own personal finance show for a while. She doesn't anchor that anymore, so that's kind of, you always have to kind of dance around that. Like, so you used to have a named show, and now you don't. So how'd that happen, right? You basically just acknowledge that she did have that show, and now she doesn't have her show. I don't know why that happened, and I mean, somebody can ask that. So you did have a name show, and now you don't. What was that your choice, or was that the network's choice? Right, something like that is okay to ask. But just kind of trying to understand her place in the pecking order of Fox anchors and Fox personalities, right? So in the world of TV, those of you who have taken enough TV, you know that it's a different kind of environment. So somebody's on air a lot, like a Jerry Willis and a Bill Hemmer. They're considered talent, right? That's the talent. And they have contracts, and their contracts are, for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. In the world of newspapers, magazines, online, that doesn't exist, right? So Jim Rutenberg doesn't have a contract. He's an employee of the New York Times. He can leave at any point. But a Jerry Willis is contractually obligated to Fox through the end of her contract. And then there's always this renegotiation. And all these folks at this level have agents who are in the mix, trying to get the best money for them, get the best working conditions, whatever. In the world of talent, there are also different levels. A Bill Hemmer, I would consider a working talent. He really prides himself on being a working journalist, on still going out on big stories from time to time, meaning going out into the field, right? I don't know if he did in 2017. So that's a fair question for him, right? When we're at Fox, so, in 2017, did you go out into the field? What's your appetite for doing that anymore at this point in your career, right? So a Jerry Willis, I don't know if she goes out into the field much anymore, right? Maybe prepackaged things that are arranged for her. She'll be on the ground somewhere to get a different kind of feel for the video, right? If you leave the offices. So anyway, it's a rarefied world. These are people who make a lot of money. They have obligations to their network, and so they're treated in kind of more of a star. There's kind of deferential behavior, and both on the part of the colleagues and guests, and they kind of not all of them, not uniformly, behave as if they are elevated human beings in the world. You guys get my point on that, right? So it's not as though we have to treat any people with kid gloves, but just to try to be aware. When we first, I'll tell you this little side story, maybe I already did. The first time we met Jerry Willis, she was clearly like in between sets, like she was dressed up, she was anchored up, she had on her little sheath dress, and she had on, lots of makeup, and she came down to the lobby and she was waiting for us, and it was taking a while to check in, and you could tell she was like a little bit nervous because, she was watching the clock, and she was carrying her false eyelashes like in a little box, and she kept, the whole time we talked to her, she kept tapping them on the table like, oh God, okay, I'm going to answer this question, but I've got to go put on my eyelashes, so it was just kind of funny, anchory moment where she was very worried about being ready for on air. Other questions? So in terms of how you spend the rest of today, obviously you got to get those portfolios going. Do what you can to continue to read the clips that I provided. I'll do the same. Again, I do realize I've put a heavy load on you guys to both read and prep your portfolios. You got the websites done in the can, so that's good. You don't have to really worry about those again until after the trip. If you have questions, I'll be on and off the computer for the next few hours, then taking a break, then back on. So let's say I'll be available until probably 2-ish, and then back at my computer 4-ish for a couple hours. And then, but if you ever have urgent questions, you want something answered quickly so you can move on to the next task, feel free to text me, okay? Like you, I keep my phone with me all the time, and that's the quickest way to get a response. So my my cell number's in the syllabus. I can put it on the I can put it in group me, so you can capture it quickly and put it in your phones. Right? Feel free to text me at any time. And again, if your travel plans change because of the weather or anything else, be in touch with me about that. But otherwise, I'll let you go for now. And good luck with all your work.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so I was just wondering if on Sunday, like when we arrive, like do we have to wear the business attire to the museum? We can wear casual clothes.
Yeah, you could definitely be casual at the museum and for the balance of that day. but the other days you're going to want to be. One of the challenges of packing for this trip is that we don't often have time to come back and make a wardrobe change, right? So what you put on at 7 a.m. is probably what you're going to wear until 11 p.m. I think on the day we go to the theater, there will be enough time to pit stop at the hotel, drop your bag, lighten your load, change if you want, and then go to dinner and to the show, because the dinner and the show are close to the hotel. And I think I told you this, but we are meeting another group. Did I tell you that we're meeting another class? Okay, so we're meeting. There's another Miami class in New York the same time. They're going to be there for 10 days versus our 6 days. It's a fashion marketing class taught by a professor named Leslie Stoll, Stoel. And we are going to have dinner together with them on Wednesday night and see Come From Away with them on Wednesday night. So it'll be a group of 35 of us. And in addition to us, myself and my husband, it'll be Professor Stoll and an associate dean from the College of Creative Arts. Leslie actually is part of Farmer and part of College of Creative Arts, the fashion marketing major, I guess. I don't know how that works, but so we'll have an associate dean by the name of John Wiegand and his wife, Ann Wiegand, who teaches architecture in CCA. So, it'll be a big group, and I'm looking forward to chatting with them, meeting their students. If you happen to know anybody in that class, reach out and say hey. But that's the only thing we're doing in common is the dinner and the show. So
I have a question too. So I was just wondering, like, I've kind of had some trouble with the subway pass. What are your instructions on that? Like, is there like a website we go to for that, or?
I'm sorry, for the what?
For the subway pass.
Yeah, I would recommend that you just do it when you get there, Ashley, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's kiosks in all the stations, and it's $33 for the week. We'll just buy them. We can buy them on the way to the museum, but if you're there earlier, you could buy it earlier because it's good for a week, right?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So speaking of earlier, my husband and I get in on Saturday night, assuming no snow interruptions, and we are planning to go see the movie The Post at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning. Anybody who is on the ground and would like to join us, I will provide the address of where we're going. I think it's on 23rd Street, so it's probably a subway ride, unless I find a closer one. But that's what I found yesterday with a quick search, is that the Post is playing 10 a.m. and then also 12:45, but I thought that might be cutting it too close at a theater, because I'd love to just see that. I think it's going to get mentioned in our visits, and want to see what all the cool kids in New York see. So it's not playing here. Is it playing where you guys live? Yeah, I think it only opened in big markets before the end of the year. Yeah. And the other thing, and I mentioned this yesterday, I think, is when you're prepping and reading and whatever on Sunday night, be sure to watch the Golden Globes, because that gets a ton of mileage the next day. Like it's like the world just takes a little interruption. It's like, oh, let's talk about Hollywood for 12 hours. And that's, so we might get some conversation about the Golden Globe winners. And that's always a early prognosticator for who might be up for Academy Awards for the year.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I am doing the portfolio on David Koshik, and I just whoever was working at Miami said they were going to get the guest list for who's.
Oh yeah, I have that.
Okay.
Let me send that to you. She sent it to me. What she sent me was the guest. She kind of sent it backwards. Who's not coming? It's like, okay, I need who's coming. That's Jess Allman, who you guys will be meeting. But I will send that, Alex, and see if you can give me the opposite list.
Yeah, I would need the opposite list. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
So for the reception, do you want us to wear business casual to that, or is it dressier? Or
Yeah, business casual is fine. Okay. Yeah, right. What's your definition, guys, of business casual? What does that include for ladies?
I guess just like nice pants that aren't jeans or leggings, and then I usually do like a blazer or like a nicer top. Right?
Yep.
Is that fine? Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. So generally, leggings are not a good idea in the workplace, right? They're more of a student thing. So you want to wear pants or a skirt. You can kind of get away with leggings if you have on like high boots and they're camouflaged and you're wearing a blazer over your butt, right? Don't want to see any of the, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And for guys, yeah, a dress shirt, sweater, tie. You don't have to have all those every day, but you need a blazer or a suit. We talked about that before, but if you have any questions about what you're packing, please holler. Okay.
Do you recommend like wearing like boots when we're out and then bringing a pair of nice shoes so we don't get our shoes kind of ruined?
Yeah. So the streets of New York, even if it snows, tend to be plowed pretty quickly and shoveled pretty quickly. Same with the subway, right? They don't, they pretty much clear the path. So I have never found it necessary to wear boots, aside from like right when the snow falls. But by the next morning, everything is shoveled. So yes, Ashley, to answer your question, you certainly can go that route if you've got a bag where you can carry a pair of dress shoes and wear flat boots to walk in. That's kind of always my backup plan if there is snow on the ground. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, kids. Have a good day. Don't go back to bed. Stay at it. I see some people appear to be in beds. Lizzie, are you in a bed? One year I had somebody actually laying in the bed with their computer like this. And I thought, that is not a good sign because they're going right back to sleep. All right. Have a good day, everyone. And talk to you again tomorrow, if not before. Adios.